everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. By now, you know the score. If you don't know the score, know the score. Hit subscribe, join the army. So we are on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube, all the other ones, the floppy disk downstairs that's got a copy of Windows 95 on it. Smash that into an old computer and this show will start playing automatically. It's all things Eagles related from the last 7 days. And what a 7 days it's been. I mean, last week I recorded the This Week in Philadelphia sports video and there was virtually nothing to talk about. And then within about a space of maybe 3 days, we've gone from Nick Foles being confirmed as a free agent, to Brandon Graham's extension, to Bryce Harper signing with the Phillies, to Timmy Jernigan's option not being exercised. There is so much to get through, so do make sure you're slapping that subscribe button if you have. And if you listen to it on iTunes, leave a review. No one's actually left a written review yet, so if you do that, I'll think about sending you a t-shirt or something. It's not bribery. It's not bribery. Don't tell anyone, and it will be totally fine. But there's only one real way we can start this show. I say, glancing down at 2 glasses of the exact same drink. I don't know why I've made 2 glasses of cream soda, but it's a strange time we live in. You know, hangover cures are important after Bryce Harper set the world on fire. But again, there is only one way we can possibly start this, and that is with a massive, massive thank you. Now, many of you will be aware, if you do follow me on Twitter, Liam Jenkins 21, that we had our 5-year anniversary yesterday. Not yesterday. I don't even know what it was. It was the 27th of February. So, 5 years of Philly Sports Network. That is crazy. And the first ever Outside Insider podcast was 3 years ago. And I went back and listened to that, and it was absolutely awful. I mean, it's exactly the same as it is now, just with a little bit, I know it's hard to imagine, but with a higher pitched voice. But to think how far this podcast especially has come, that the audience it now has, and that you guys, you know, just enjoy a sassy British guy talking about the Eagles in a very sarcastic sense occasionally, it means a lot. And I've never had more fun doing this than I am right now, and getting these guests on that you guys are all enjoying as well. Just thank you for giving me this platform. Thank you for listening to this, whether it's on your way to work or during some, you know, rumpy pumpy time. I'm not writing anything off. You might like it. Or any other kind of circumstance where this show is being played. Just thank you for, again, giving me this opportunity and for making the Outside Insider show a part of your life. I genuinely wouldn't be here without you, and it means a lot. Oh, I'm glad I got the soppiness out of the way. It only took 3 minutes, but we're going to talk about Nick Foles straight away, because I think that is probably the elephant in the room here. And said elephant is now walking bittersweetly into a sunset with its trunk just swinging around like Big Dick Nick's big dick, presumably. It was a bit of an emotional goodbye, wasn't it, to Nick Foles? It was sort of the outcome we all knew was going to happen, but it still hurts when it sets in. One of those ones. And I don't really know how it got to this point, because for some reason, the last 2 months, all you heard on media or on radio or wherever was the Eagles are going to trade Nick Foles for Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Fournette, 2 first-round picks, and the singer from Metallica. And I don't understand how it ever got to that point. If you're listening to this show, we're going to have a little sip of tea. We're British. There is a Kermit meme, because we were right all along. I told you months ago what was going to happen. I wrote an article saying what was going to happen. I had sources telling me what was going to happen, and it happened. So that was quite a little, you know, a vindicating moment for sure. But it didn't stop it being any bittersweet. And I think the Eagles made the right call. Now, there was a tweet, we've got to reference here, where Joe Giglio put out that, the Eagles made a big mistake letting Foles go for free. And it's just a bit like, honey, come on, sit down. There was just no market. There was no market. And I said this for months, that outside of Philadelphia, teams don't believe Nick Foles will be as special. Now, don't get angry at me, I'm just a messenger. But there is a consensus that Nick Foles, outside of that West Coast scheme, outside of that Andy Reid, Doug Peterson coaching tree, will not be anywhere near as effective, will not be worthy of a 25 million tag. That's roughly what we're looking at here, okay? So, letting Nick Foles walk, the Eagles get a compensatory pick in next year's draft, which should be a 3rd round pick. Fantastic. Again, if you're going to try and trade into a team, you're taking an immediate $25 million cap hit. Then you've got to try and get back something worth more than a third-round pick next year. For a team who's literally just seen him willingly want to walk into free agency, you're trying to force a hand that no one wants to play. It's like... Put it this way, okay? I'm a massive NFL guy, you know that, otherwise you wouldn't listen to this show. But believe it or not, in England, not many other people are. So when you try and get your friends to play Madden, no one cares. It's like if you're the emo kid at school, and My Chemical Romance released a new banger, and you want to go and show your friends, and they're all listening to Justin Timberlake, it doesn't matter how good you think My Chemical Romance are, they will not care. And you can dye your hair black, and you can get a pen and start drawing the little My Chemical Romance logo, they won't care. Even if you wear skinny jeans and Converse and get thrown in a bin like I did. What? I didn't do that. What? Huh? That's unfortunately what it's like with Nick Foles. So what does the future hold for Nick Foley and Dynamite? Well, the nice thing is that it's up to him. And a lot of people are automatically drawing the connection to Jacksonville, where John DeFilippo has a very strong relationship with Foles, given their history in Philadelphia. I would probably assume that would be the prime landing spot. But from a family perspective, from someone that has resided in Philadelphia for the bulk of his career, realistically, having to go across the country to play in Jacksonville, is that going to be the most... It's hot, it's sweaty, it's boring, it's Jack... Do you know what I mean? There may be an element of, I've got friends here, I've got family here, my kids go to school here, I want to stay. And I'm not being funny. A lot of people are writing this off. I know Elliot Shaw-Parks tweeted it and people wrote it off, and I actually agree with it here. There is a chance that Foles comes back. And I don't think it would be a case of, paying that $25 million. But more so, you let Foles go and decide his own destiny. And if Foles wants to go out, test a free agent market, have a look at Jacksonville, maybe have a little trip to Miami while you're down there in that sort of region, maybe fly out to Denver, get colder again, maybe have a look even elsewhere, have a chat with Cincinnati. Even maybe the Cardinals, since they love Sam Bradford and the whole Josh Rosen thing that's going on now. There are numerous destinations where Nick Foles would be a great fit. But would they be a great fit for Nick Foles? And if he goes out for 6 months and he goes, you know what? I kind of miss Philadelphia. I kind of miss what I had there. He doesn't have to sign immediately. He's not going to sign on March 3rd. This is a big life-changing decision. He was going to retire a couple of years ago. He wants to start. And if he can't get that, and no team is going to be willing to invest in him as a bridge quarterback or as a starter for now, why wouldn't he come back? And know where his role is, know where his team is, know how the offense runs. The potential's there. It's sort of like if a relationship comes to an end on good terms, and you're like, do you know what? It's for the best, it sucks, it hurts. And in 6 months, a year, 2 years' time, you look back on it, and you've probably both moved on. Life's changed, but... That little spark's still there. Who's to say you won't reunite? Who's to say it won't have a second try? I just got a funny feeling that Nick Foles saga, you can't really put a cap on it, can you? You can't close the book on something that special. For a man who in 2013 got into Canton with that 7-touchdown game against the Raiders. For a man who then in his first season as a quarterback gets the Eagles to a playoff game, and then comes back. And I think I don't even need to say anything else after that sentence. He returns, Super Bowl 52, returns again, playoff berth, and this is what poses a question now. Because as of right now, the Eagles have one quarterback. Well, they have two. Nate Sudfeld is a restricted free agent. How much do they value Nate Sudfeld? This will be the ultimate trust test. This is like, you know when you're in school and your teacher gets you to do that trust test where you stand behind your friend leans back and you've got to catch him? Imagine that, but you're falling into a pit of lava. This is the whole Nate Sudfeld situation. He's been with the team since 2017. Since the very start of that season, signed on as a QB3. And Doug Peterson, since the minute he walked in the door, wanted a project quarterback. He wanted a developmental arm. And now we can see why. The backup has been and gone. Any team has seen the value of a backup, it's Philadelphia. If any team has. Of having that contingency plan there. And that's why you groom that QB3. So now Nate Sudfeld, as a restricted free agent, has to look at this as like, right, am I going to be a backup to Carson Wentz here? And the Eagles have to look at this as, right, if Carson goes down week 14, playoffs on the line. Oh, my next door neighbours are drilling a hole. I'm really sorry if you can hear this. This hasn't gone to plan. You might not be able to hear this, in which case it's really weird. But if you can, it just sounds like someone's farting constantly. This is the perks of not having a studio. But back onto the topic, I suppose. Nate Sudfeld, again, week 14, Carson Wentz goes down. Is Nate Sudfeld going to be the guy to lead that team to a playoff berth? Do the team trust in Nate Sudfeld as they did in Foles? Can they build an offense around Nate Sudfeld? Is he reliable enough? Is he accurate enough to be a backup? He's around the same age as Carson Wentz. He's not going to be a veteran guy. Carson Wentz doesn't need that tutelage anymore, it doesn't feel like. He's his own quarterback now. He's going into his contract year. You don't need that mentor as a backup. In this case, it becomes more of an understudy. So would Sudfeld be the guy? Because if the answer is no, then you're looking at, well, can we bring Foles back? Is it going to be Teddy Bridgewater? Is it going to be Fitzmagic? If it is Sudfeld, well, then we're looking at the draft as QB3s. Then we're looking at, can we bring in Easton Stick as another understudy to Carson Wentz? The NDSU quarterback who worked under Carson Wentz during his time as a Bison. Why not? The potential is there for the Eagles to completely reinvent their quarterback room. You look at what they did with DeFilippo when they let go. They had to revamp the coaching staff and all of that sort of thing. Now we're looking at the actual players and not the personnel. Foles has moved on for now. Don't write off a return. Either there or as Kansas City, potentially. As a backup. If he can't get that starting role. If he can, I think he will. I'm just saying, if there is a scenario where he can't get the situation he likes, there is no reason why he wouldn't return. But if you're Nate Sudfeld and you're Howie Roseman, is that the guy you want to lean on? If Carson Wentz, let's be honest, while all injuries are unrelated, 2 of his 3 have been season-ending. 2 of 3 seasons have been cut out by an injury. That backup is crucial. That contingency plan is crucial. And I genuinely believe at this stage, they have to get a plan in place. Whether that's Sudfeld, whether that's a veteran, whether that's me, because, you know, I've got arms like paper, you know, little noodles, it's not great. It's going to be an interesting off-season. So the big domino to fall here will be whether Nate Sudfeld re-signs with the team. If he does, which I'm sure he will, that ticks off one need for now. But will they believe in Nate Sudfeld as a backup? Will they bring in an understudy or a veteran? That will be the ultimate question. But let me know what you think, guys. Again, if you are new around here, make sure you're hitting that like button, subscribing to the podcast where you can. We do have merch available as well right now. That's new. So that's available. You can get subscribed to the Outside Insider shirts. I'd love to get you guys some of those. We shipped out a couple. Oh, my neighbours are off again. This is going to be a fun podcast, isn't it? The art of improv isn't my strong point, and I don't know how to make that sound anything less like a fart. I mean, I can play an applause sound, but that kind of feels like I'm applauding their farting drill. So we're going to move on before we get... So you can tell that I went out last night slightly and I'm a little bit fragile. The other big news this week came actually today. So the day of filming this podcast. And that was Brandon Graham's 3-year, $40 million extension. And my God, how vindicating is that? How validating is that for Brandon Graham? Was my first takeaway. Like, do you know what? I'm happy he's with the team. I'm happy that the Eagles have been able to work it out. But the fact is that he's been so undervalued and so overlooked by the front office over the last 4 years is actually criminal. Like, it is borderline get the police involved and launch an investigation level. It's really, really bad. Think back, 2015. Alright, I beg your pardon, he comes on next year. Brandon Graham comes onto the scene, has a very good year, his final year under Chip Kelly, and the Eagles extend a defensive end. They're like, we need to keep one of these guys. They're like, now who's been the most productive defensive end? And everyone's like, it's Brandon. They're like, who's been the most promising? And everyone's going, Brandon Graham. It's Brandon Graham. Who's the man we want to build around? And they're just screaming, Brandon Graham, it's Brandon. And out of nowhere, they re-sign Vinny Curry. And they give him a monumental extension. And I know exactly why they did it. I've told this story many, many, many times because it's one of the few that I was the only place to actually break it. And at that time, I think the site was a lot smaller, so I didn't really get picked up. But the Baltimore Ravens came sniffing for Vinny Curry. Curry wanted to stay in Philadelphia. Obviously, he was a local kid. And the minute the Eagles caught wind of it, they upped the offer and away they went. And the Eagles kind of overpaid. And a couple of years later, he was released. But it doesn't matter, because 1 year later, you know, Brandon Graham comes out, 2016, has a huge year, and everything's going swimmingly, right? Well, yeah, fine, but then they go and draft Derek Barnett. And that doesn't end well, because now Brandon Graham's thinking, well, we've just got veterans, and you've literally just potentially drafted my replacement. What happens now? Well, where am I in this team? If I'm Brandon Graham, like, what have you got? What more have you got to do to earn a contract extension? I mean, 2016 was good. 2017, now he's angry. He's like, Derek Barnett comes out. He's been drafted. He's a rookie. He's like, I've got to do something. So he puts up 9.5 sacks. 9.5 sacks. A career high by 3. It was incredible. And did the Eagles pay him then? No, they draft Josh Sweat, and they sign Michael Bennett, and Brandon Graham isn't paid again. Now, looking back retrospectively, I think that may have been a smart move for Howie Roseman, because as a result, Graham didn't produce as much. He was coming off an injury, wasn't anywhere near as productive early on in the season, and as a result, we're probably able to strike fast here. Graham wanted to stay in Philadelphia. He's been here since 2010, which is almost longer than I've been alive, let's be honest. And now we're in a situation where the Eagles have really taken the first premier pass rusher out of that free agency pool. Because it's going to get pricey. It is going to get very, very pricey. We saw this a couple years ago with wide receivers, with Alshon Jeffrey, and the Eagles struck very quickly to kind of bring him on board. We've seen it before at actually a couple positions. The year they signed Nigel Bradham to an extension was a perfect example of the guys that were coming out. Safeties, another one. The Eagles like to strike when it's a little bit cheaper, when it's a little bit quiet, before the market almost has a chance to reset. Look at the Fletcher Cox extension. Look at the Fletcher Cox extension. At the time that came, when at the exact time frame you're looking at, where there are names like Gerald McCoy looking at a potential deal, you've got other big-time defensive tackles. One of them's going to be the $100 million man. The minute that ball starts rolling, just like quarterbacks, like when Derek Carr became the most overpaid quarterback in the league, outside of poor Sammy Sleeves. I love you, Sam, it's okay. But when Derek Carr was at one point named the NFL's most valuable quarterback in terms of a contract value, what happened then? Everyone's looking at Derek Carr going, well, if Derek Carr can make that much, surely I deserve X amount of money. Right? That's how this works. That's how this is supposed to work. And it's the exact same with this defensive line. If you look at any of the names, alright, I'm just going to read off a few of the names that are going to be available in this year's free agency class along the defensive line, okay? Ziggy Ansah, DeMarcus Lawrence, Donkey Kong Suh, Mohamed Wilkerson's probably another one, Benny Logan, obviously, Devonta Pecker could probably get some good money. I would say Haloti Ngata, but probably shouldn't there. Jonathan Hankins could be another name to watch out for. Zach Kerr could be another name. Bruce Irvin could be another name. There are a lot of free agent pass rushers this year that are growing to be a commodity. Teams are adopting this almost committee type effort because they have to, because they've got to account for so much more now. You can't just be a raw get to the quarterback type of pass rusher. If you're a defensive end, how you process the game, how you read option looks, how you set the edge and contain the run is just as important as anything else, right? So now teams are craving. They're craving these players. And I really think that by getting in early, Roseman may have just found a way to jump the market, to jump the gun. Because this is a team that's strapped for cap space. But if you think all they've done here is they've denied picking up Timmy Jernigan's option. So they're going to allow him to walk away, which should free up around 13 million. Conveniently enough, Brandon Graham per year is earning between 12 and 14. Oh, if only there was a number that sat between 12. Oh, there is. It's 13. And that would be the number that... Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? So I think that's genuinely what's happened. Fair play to Howie Roseman for jumping the market. I do think from a human perspective that Brandon Graham should have been paid a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years before he was. But in doing so, in waiting, in playing that long game, I think Roseman has maximised the value of the cheap deal he was already on, and now been able to find a way to find even more value because you paid him early. And now that's going to be the benchmark. So teams who are going to look at Graham's 2018, where he wasn't getting a lot of sacks, where he was playing injured, where he wasn't the most productive, guys like Ziggy Ansah. And now they're going to get even more money, therefore making Howie Roseman seem like the absolute baller that he is. And that's just the norm, isn't it, at this point for Howie? That's just what he does best. So that happened. Brandon Graham back in Philadelphia for 3 years now. That is a huge get for the Eagles. And now I guess we turn our attention to the NFL Combine, which is going on this weekend in Indianapolis, where I should be competing. Let's be brutally honest here. I mean, not to brag, but if you've seen my NFL London vlog, you'd have seen my 38.9-inch vertical in a sheepskin coat and skinny jeans and a pair of Air Jordan 3s. So imagine what I could do in some nice tight-fitting Under Armour vests, is all I say to that. NFL scouts, if you're listening to this. Talking of which, actually, I had a very interesting email earlier today, and I'm not sure how much I can disclose from this, but I've been passed along the information for an NFL consultant and a salary cap expert. So I may or may not be trying to slide into the DMs there and see if we can sort out a potential podcast interview. Because I think especially this off-season, where the Eagles have so much to play for and so little cap space to play with, that could be a very interesting interview to how does someone navigate cap space. Do you view it on an Excel spreadsheet? Is it on a bank account? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it'd be very interesting to get some clarity there. So we'll try and get that interview in. And obviously, we want to get Cravon LeBlanc as well. That is the dream interview. I'm still haven't shot my shot in the DMs with Captain Cravon yet. I'm waiting for the right time. It still bedazzles me that both him and his mother follow me on Twitter, so who knows. But I can't help but feel, ladies and gentlemen, that it just feels a bit lonely today. I think after having Jack Fritz on last week and ESP on the week before, I just feel a little bit on my own. I feel, you know, what's even worse, okay, is I went on Twitter and I put out what I normally do, the thank you next poll, where I'm like, hey, if you've got questions, submit them. Let's go. Let's make it fun. Let's talk about the Eagles. And no one replied. And it was the first time this has ever happened. And I think, which didn't help, is that I actually had a 15-minute Q&A on the YouTube channel about 2 days before. So all your Q&As probably were answered there, really. But the point is, alright, what do I do now? This is prime thank you next viewing. And the only question I got was someone getting angry at me because I used the Jonas Brothers. And they were like, they didn't like the Jonas Brothers. And I'm like, I don't like them, but they had a sign and I wrote on the sign. So that sucked. I'm a bit emotional. You have to, if you haven't subscribed yet, you have to, just as an apology. I'm absolutely distraught. Absolutely distraught. I'm kidding. But back onto the NFL Combine, where the Eagles have actually announced some interesting tidbits over the last couple of days. One of them saying that they're interested to let their young cornerbacks grow, which to me means guys like Rasul Douglas could be getting a potential starting role. To me, it's an insight that they're going to let Ronald Darby walk off into free agency. I would not blame them in the slightest for doing that. We don't need to justify that move at all, really. That's sort of like if you drop a burger on the floor, are you going to eat it? Probably not. You don't want food poisoning. Food poisoning is the worst. Put the burger in the bin. So that's what they're doing here. And Rasul Douglas, to me, if anyone, deserves a starting role next year. Now, the cornerback, for some reason, I don't get why the Eagles are being mocked corners in the first round. The only cornerback I would love to see on the Eagles team in that region would be Greedy Williams, and he is not going to be on the board at 25. But if you look at the Eagles cornerback core now, where the average age of their 5 cornerbacks is 23. I am the average age of the Eagles cornerback, and I've got a 38.9-inch vertical, and I can run like a 6-second 40-yard dash. So, why aren't I a cornerback? I don't know. They should get me in there for training camp. That would be fun. But it's going to be a very interesting training camp on that note. Douglas has 58 tackles, 4 pass breakups in 2018, 5 picks in 2 seasons. He turned into a tackling machine in 2018. He was like an absolute stallion. I haven't seen anything like it. The development he had over the course of those few months was just unheralded. So without Darby, I think your starting cornerback trio of Mills, Douglas, maybe Sidney Jones, or I guess it's going to have to be Mills, Jones. Oh, this is what I mean. I can't even say it out loud. There are so many plausibilities where you're like, well, who's going to start? Because in a dream world, it would be Jones, Douglas, maybe Maddox in the slot, maybe or LeBlanc in the slot and Maddox at safety. I still would struggle to field an argument that Jalen Mills should be a starter just because he's been there since 2016. Let's be honest, Jalen Mills, I know he was drafted in the 7th round. I know he's earned a role as a starter. But one, he does that really, really annoying chicken thing. And everyone's like, oh, Liam, it's just flex. It's not flexing, alright? I am the king of dripping. I'm not. That sounded really cringy. But that is not flexing. You flex your arm muscle. You don't grab your collar and move your head back and forward like you're listening to N-dubs or some weird British pop act. You just don't. It's this weird chicken thing he does after every play. And it aggravates me. And I don't know what it is. It's not a flex and it needs to be stopped. I'd rather he finger wagged on every play. Actually does that anyway. Than do what he does currently. But that's a separate gripe. I think in terms of actual play, it's actually very hard to make an argument that Jalen Mills should be on the field as a starter. I mean, even Crayvon LeBlanc, who came into the team mid-season, allowed an average of 10 yards per catch. He wasn't that great in times, and then out of nowhere, turned it on and developed into this absolute monster. He had the interception versus the Saints. He was just this very physical, very feisty, very aggressive corner that wanted to press and get his hands on receivers. And out of nowhere, we saw LeBlanc rise from someone that was signed off the street almost, it felt like, to just being a natural leader on that defense. Someone that had really stepped up to the occasion. It's the same with Douglas. Mills has had 3 years, and he is the exact same player. Douglas from year 2 to year 3, tackling. Crayvon LeBlanc in a few weeks went from, I guess, 0 to hero. Sidney Jones, you could see the development. He still had very little exposure in these sort of circumstances. How has Jalen Mills improved? What has Jalen Mills shown me over 3 years? Other than in the red zone, when he's got less to defend, he's a bit better. He still gets burned down deep. He still bites on double moves. He's still sloppy in his hip transitions. He's still, I guess, leaves his... It's hard to say because it's more of a wide receiver trait, but when he comes out of his stance and into his back pedal, he does kind of keep his back a bit more forward. So as opposed to being compact and then kind of forcing your momentum backwards, it's really hard not to physically show this right now and describe it like an audio book. It's very weird. But he's a bit more upright, like his stomach is a bit more out, which means he's a bit more rigid, he's a bit taller in his stance, and he's a little bit more difficult to turn around, and that's what's causing some of these problems. I need to do a film room on that, because that was the worst description over a microphone. Like, imagine 50 Shades of Grey if it was like that. Like, is that a blue coat, a black coat? He's got to take that off? Like, oh, that's happening. One day we'll do that. Next time we've got a slow down a podcast, we'll go through 50 Shades of Grey. But, yeah, I think that my dream cornerback scenario right now will be Rasul Douglas one side, Sidney Jones the other, Crayvon LeBlanc in the slot, and Avonte Maddox at a safety. You don't need to draft a corner. You really don't need to draft a corner. And I think that's what Harry Roseman echoed during the Combine, who I believe, if I can find the quote here on the very spot, which is very difficult to do when you're recording a live podcast, he said, we've used a lot of draft picks at that position. You've got to give your young players a chance to grow. Absolutely. Otherwise, you just keep spending draft picks and they keep not growing. Rasul Douglas in year 1. What? Who said that? Who said Rasul? Who was that? See you in the corner, John. All right. Got you. You really have to give everyone the chance to grow into their roles. We're all looking forward to them to taking the next steps with those young guys. You saw last year that you could run out of guys at the position pretty quickly. One of the benefits of that was other guys having the chance to step up both on our team and that we acquired through the course of the year. So Roseman knows what he's doing. Roseman knows the score. Elsewhere, as opposed to what else is going on at the Combine, the Eagles have pretty much met with every running back ever, which is needed. Let's be brutally honest here. It's very, very needed. But where are they going to take a running back? Because the last time they took a running back of any note, sorry Donnell Pumphrey, but you constantly bickering with Bryce Treggs on Twitter isn't of note, was LaShawn McCoy in the second round all those years ago. They've not taken a running back higher since. They've not taken a running back in the same round since. They don't draft running backs high. In the last 3 years, Christian McCaffrey had been on the board, Dalvin Cook had been on the board, and somehow, alright, I mean, this is the best. This is the absolute best. Let's go back to the 2017 draft, where in the 4th round, the Eagles selected Donnell Pumphrey. Do you want to hear some of the running backs who were taken literally in the same round? In the same round. Alright? 2 picks later, Jamal Williams out of BYU. That was fantastic. That had me crying. Alright? A few picks later, Wayne Gallman for the New York Giants. Now, you can look at Gallman and say, well, I've got Saquon now, and Gallman wasn't that great. I disagree. I think, actually, he's been relatively promising during his NFL career. It's not like he's been really, really bad. I think he had 170-odd yards in 2018. Which, given everything with Saquon Barkley, is still relatively... It's better than Donnell Pumphrey, put it that way. And then, the real one here, Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack for the Indianapolis Colts. Doesn't that sting? Do you know what else? Do you know who else was taken in that draft? A couple of picks later, George Kittle. Now, I know the Eagles didn't need a tight end there, but DeMonte Kazee was another one of my big cornerback crushes. He was taken shortly after. These aren't running backs. These are just draft crushes that I've got. A little thing. But Aaron Jones out of UTEP, that would have been a big pick. Elijah McGuire's been, okay, probably still better than Donnell Pumphrey. I mean, put it this way, you could get a tackler that would have been more productive than Donnell Pumphrey. Any others? Elijah Hood has had a little bit of a run at times. And Chris Carson in the 7th round. That's been big. So, did the Eagles mess up there? Probably. Do they draft running backs well? Not really. They need to sort this year. So meeting with guys like David Montgomery and Devin Singletary, along with others, is just the way forward. But I think we're going to end it there, because we don't want to spoil too much of the Combine. Should we have a Combine special? I think we may do. I'll see if we can get a guest on to talk about the Combine after it's finished. I won't reveal too much, but I'll just say that you'll enjoy it. So on that note, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. From myself, Liam Jenkins, you can follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21, at Philadelphia SN for Philly Sports Network. Thank you for your time today. I hope that you have enjoyed that rumpy pump with this playing in the background, or revising for an exam, or on your way to work, or at the gym. Where else can you listen to it? At a wedding. Have it as your wedding song. Actually, when I die, I'll have it as my funeral song, to be honest, so there's that. But thank you for enjoying the show, guys. Make sure you hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time for another episode of The Outside Inside.